Welcome everyone to PWT Success Connect. I have with me two of the most impactful thought leaders and proud to be colleagues within our PWT Mentor Expert ecosystem. We have Mindy McManus, who is a leadership strategy specialist and a very spiritual influencer. You must call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have, of course, Youssef Skalli from Scalability. He doesn't make it easy on me. Coming to us from Ottawa, and Mindy, of course, is in Florida. So we have an international perspective today, and we're speaking about the role of faith in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So much happening in the world right now, and the world is hurting, and in what does the word God of faith and trust play in the leadership narrative? So, Mindy, we'll start with you. You come to us from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
with spirituality and is a lot more open and a lot more intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure intentional is the right word, but is more. You tell me.
There's an awakening. There's
Yeah.
an awakening that's happening here in America, and it didn't just start with Charlie Kirk, but that put some, what do you call that, lighter fluid or gasoline on the fire.
Ignited,
It
accelerated, or accelerated.
ignited and
Really.
celebrated and showed people that there are people out there that are talking about God, that it is okay to talk about God.
And in the States, I mean, it's in your currency, in God we trust, right? So, and although there's been, mountains and valleys, whether, it's okay to pray, it's okay to speak of your spirituality and that. That takes us to the Canadian perspective. And although Youssef and I bring a little bit more of the world perspective, but we're both, Youssef being in Ottawa and myself in the Greater Toronto area, we have a saying in Canada, and I don't know if you've come across in your corporate and in your thought leadership, Youssef, is that we do not speak of politics, religion, or sex. not in polite society, right? So religion and faith is something that is just not spoken about, at least out loud, right? Like if you're in community, if you're at church, if you're, in a private kind of setting, is different. But in the public setting, we're not as open, it seems. Youssef, is that your take on
Yeah,
my assessment?
absolutely. And as a new Canadian, that was one of the first things that I was told to avoid, actually, as
Tell you
part,
at the airport.
as part
Anyway,
of
we don't speak of religion, sex, or
exactly, as part of my integration. And the first thing I was told, don't speak about, as you said, politics, religion, and now they added gender topics. But I have just to say that I have seen that everywhere. I have been for the past 25 years all across the globe, and I have seen that everywhere. And that's really contradictory, because this is why I'm so glad that we have today this conversation with you, Mindy, because what we are exploring, it's really, okay, we can give it the name of faith, because this is faith. But then what is faith? Because we have been told for years that coming to work or coming to any leadership spotlight, leave your faith aside, but still be your authentic self.
But, and I have to tell you, I'm gonna put a pin there for a second, okay? So the three of us do the majority of our work on LinkedIn, right? Although we do have, great presence in other platforms, but the bulk of our work is on LinkedIn. So in the last, say, let's do the benchmark of pandemic, right? Since the pandemic, a lot of things have changed in the discourse. So identity, any kind of identity politics, and I don't want to call it politics, but any kind of identity narrative or discourse seems to have diminished on LinkedIn. You do not see a lot of International Women's Day, or you don't see a lot of diversity talk. You don't see a lot of, gender, as you said, right? Like the gender cultural, circumstances that we've been through. However, I do see a lot of posting about spirituality and faith in God. And I am always surprised of how where it's coming from, right? Like these are some pretty big thought leaders that all of a sudden are bringing God into their messaging. And also how much engagement they get, right? It's like it's almost like there's a hunger for it. And I must say, as I hear what your thoughts are on that, perspective, I must say to our friends and audience that the three of us are an interdisciplinary panel, because although Mindy and I are, within the Judeo-Christian, heritage, I am a Catholic, so I will, whether by birth, I guess, by heritage. Did you see that? How hard was that for it to come out? It's like I'm confessing to something. Anyways, so
No, you don't become Catholic by birth or heritage. You become Catholic by your choice.
True, but it does gets passed down, right, from your parents, and that's for all religion, right? It's different in faith and spirituality. Mindy, you are Christian, and Youssef, you tell us.
I am a Muslim by faith.
And I know you are, and I love you for it. But it's not for me to say. So, it's truly, and you have lived in countries like Spain that are predominantly Christian, and like I said, in Canada we're really agnostic at best, right? So tell us what's the tea leaves that you read coming from LinkedIn as the current state of the leadership mindset? Either one.
Let's start with you, Mindy.
Repeat that question again. What is your take on the current leadership shift?
Yeah,
right? In the good and bad, because nothing is good or bad.
Exactly. Right? Well, exactly. And so you have to understand that I am in a small microcosm within C-Suite for Christ. Yes. And so the whole purpose and premise around C-Suite for Christ is to encourage and provide a space where leaders can come together and not just talk about leading in their business, but how do they bring Jesus into their business? Yeah. How do they make God their CEO? And so I'm in this little microcosm, so it feels bigger than it is. But C-Suite for Christ is huge, and it is expanding extremely fast because people need it. People want it. People need to feel that connection, not just in the leadership space, but in with the Jesus space. I don't know about you, but I have this need, want, and desire to talk about Jesus all day long. And so if I can go and get that and go to something like C-Suite for Christ, I want to be able to do that. Yeah. And it's amazing how C-Suite for Christ came through LinkedIn. I get more engagement on because all of my stuff has to do with God and Christian leadership and that kind of stuff. I get a lot more engagement on LinkedIn than I do on Facebook, which is people that know me very well. Yeah. Now, that could be coming from your network,
right? So if you're getting a lot of engagement and your network are like-minded people,
Yep.
then of course, right? Like it just makes sense. Now there's a puppy somewhere
Right.
having their 2 cents on it. That's all right. This is real life, right? So Youssef, so you and I are new Canadians, right? And as we said, Canada is more private when it comes to faith, but there is a genuine effort from our government. If Mindy spoke of her leadership, and within our leadership, there is a genuine effort to try to have a discourse, to have a better understanding of what we all feel and believe. In fact, you have been invited to do a lot of interfaith,
Yes.
to bring a lot of interfaith dialogue to the government, not to the government, by the government to the people. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, first thing I want to say, I'm really glad to see that return back to some common anchors, some common grounding presence, regardless of the faith, but having the faith as not a tool to divide, but a tool to bring people together. Because in the past decades, what we have seen is that first we all talk about segregation of the church and politics, segregation of the mosques and politics, of the synagogue, of all the religions, all the faiths with the politics. Yes, in terms of guiding or imposing rules, I'm totally in that. But at the same time, it's separating the leadership from the faith doesn't mean denying the faith or ignoring the faith, but rather how to look at the faith as that compass that can augment the leadership impacts and the leadership influence. And I see that Mindy, this is what she's doing. So across different traditions, different perspectives, we often see a similar truth at the end. In my opinion, it's that leadership, it's not only about what we do on the outside, but it starts first about what we do on the inside. And in this era of AI, in this era of uncertainties from every angle, we see the need. Personally, I see it with my clients, I see it everywhere. It's that the need of more human-centered leadership. But how you can deliver a human-centered leadership if you are not centered human? And faith can be that center, can be that tool. So what I see, I wouldn't say I don't see it, and correct me, Mindy, in your environment, but in mine, I don't see it as kind of return to faith, because faith was already there. I see it as a need to return to that inner compass, to return to really reflect, how do I want to show up when I am interacting with the people I work with? And that my faith, whatever it is, it's not something that I have to hide and something that I have to dissociate from, but rather it's completely part of who I am, and that I wear with a badge of honor.
Yes.
Yes.
And when that comes down to full personal integration, right? Is you can't park it. And for the longest time, in Powerful Women Today, because those were our origin, right? That's how we started many years ago. And in fact, when Youssef and I, and actually the three of us have been collaborating for years. Like,
Right.
we're not new. We're old-time friends. And one of the things I loved about Youssef, and when we first met, is that in Toronto, in the Greater Toronto area, we are the third most cosmopolitan city in the world, following London and New York, right? We're not the biggest or the fanciest, but everybody comes from somewhere else, right? So it's not, there's not a lot of homogeny, and we're also not a very nationalist country as it is in the US, right? So we really have to lean on our differences more and respect our differences more. What I do not necessarily like about it is that I think sometimes, and I could be wrong, sometimes how we choose to honor it is by not talking about it. It's like if it doesn't exist, then we're all the same. It's like, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of allowing ourselves to speak about it, and we get to respect one another. That's the truth. If we don't talk about it, what's the great honor or what's the great conviction in respecting one another, right? Pretend we're all the same.
Yeah, if you don't mind, before going further, and as with our guest Mindy, it's really just to let our audience to know more. So, if you can just share with us a bit about your journey with faith, and really how your faith has shaped the way you see leadership today. I know you do a lot. You do a lot as a leader, and you do lots coaching other leaders. So it will be really interesting to share with us that.
Yeah. Well, even so, I've always believed in servant leadership, which is the kind of leadership that that Jesus purposely role modeled while he was here on earth with us. And so, even in my secular leadership development programs, they're all based off of servant leadership. How do you show up as a servant? And it gets back to what you were talking about, Youssef, about finding that inner core and that being for you, and it's having that connection. And so the connection is so important, because if you're not connected to a higher being, then you're not going to have very good moral values, and you're not going to treat people right. So it's, for me, I've always had it in there. So translating it over into more biblical leadership was not very hard, because I've always had that in there, because the principles that are in the Bible, the Bible is basic instructions for life.
Which is a common book to all three of us.
Absolutely.
Right? Back to commonality. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we're following that, and we're following, the morals and the commandments that were given to us, no matter what religion you are, we're going to connect. We're going to be great leaders, because being a leader is not about yourself. And I tell all leaders that if you don't love people, because being a leader is about loving people and helping other people to become better. It is not about selfish, which some people get into leadership for that more selfish motivation. But really and truly, when we see leaders that truly succeed, are the servant leaders, because they have a team around them that will do anything for them because they've done anything for them.
And character matters. So, if for somebody that's a great leader during the day, but their personal convictions in their, I don't want to say morality, because it just sounds like the morality police, but their values, and you work a lot with values, Youssef. Can you tell us how your value, spirituality, and faith informs your leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I want just to say what Mindy just shared with us. It was like listening to my favorite playlist songs. That was like more than music to my ears. It was music to my heart, because that's part. For me, I like to look at faith as the grounding basket of values. And regardless of the name people address to their faith, whether it is Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, whatever, it's that at the end I like to look at faith as that values grounding aspect.
Personal ethics.
And anyone here who read the Bible read the Quran or read any book, there are different ways to look at it. So some, they look at it looking for the flaws of why this is not the right faith or why this is not the good faith. And some, they will look at it, what can I learn from that? So you never buy a book to read of what is wrong with this book. You start reading a book to learn from it. And that's I see it as the missing link in different faiths. I learned a lot from the Bible personally, and from the teaching there. Same thing from other books. But just coming back to values, for me, in many ways, faith become less about the certainty, less about an absolute truth, and more about clarity in values, more about a guidance. And I come back to the era we are living today. Whether we like it or not, there are a lot of uncertainties around us. And values, having that strong values, fueled by your faith, is to me the steer that we can use to help us continue in that.
Yeah,
So as a values inspired, and I use intentionally the word inspired, because to me values, it's not words, it's an inspiration to my actions. And when I use as a values inspired, I'm not inspired only about my values. I'm inspired by the values of Mindy. I'm inspired by the values of Dr. Carolina. I'm inspired of the values on me. So I make a clear distinction between being values driven and being values inspired. Because values driven, in my opinion, is that I come first, I'm not a vehicle to be driven, even though I use the metaphor of the steer, but I am the pilot, I am the driver. The second, because values driven, it means that I come with a set of values that I want to drive everything around me from that set with values. While when I intentionally think of it as an inspiration to my thoughts, to my actions, to my relationships, to how I want to interact with others, it's a different mindset shift. But then I want just to use that moment to come back to you, Mindy. And I don't want to put you under any pressure, just to be clear. But
a tough girl. Go ahead.
I know that in your journey, reading the chapters that you have shared in the different ontologies we contributed together, that you have been through very high moments of pressure in your life and in your professional journey. And I'm really interested for us and our audience to know how has faith helped you on those pressure moments in terms of your resilience, because to me you are an example of healthy resilience.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so I lost my husband on October 30th. I lost my mom right before Christmas. And I just lost another friend. That is 3 major losses that I've been through. And losing your spouse, the person that you've been with for a long time, you don't realize the kind of grief that you have and the pain that comes with that grief. And so the past 5 months have been a lot of pressure for me. And it has only been by the grace of God that He has come in and picked me up and moved me forward and helped me to get through this. Nobody else did. It was God. And I chose January to be very intentional and go very deep with God. And I fasted, I prayed, I went extremely deep because I didn't want to, I wanted to be able to move forward without God having to pick me up and move me every day. And that is, I wouldn't have gotten through any of this. It's been 5 months. I'm working again. I'm getting out again. I'm finding joy and happiness again. And that doesn't come without a deep connection with God.
Absolutely. I just jump in here, and first of all, once again, my condolences for your losses. Dr. Karin and I shared in a past conversation, because I was going through also some grief for 1 year where I lost four people dear to me, and at the same time, what I hear you saying is that your faith helped you not only to face those losses as, okay, this is life and this is what happened, but how to really redirect that grievances into showing up even more as a grounded leader. So just for the people, because I think it just this part, it deserves a different episodes, because there are different angles to grief, and maybe
Mhm.
Dr.
I
Karina,
think we're coming back to speak about
I think we need to do that even within Career Success Connects, because
Yeah.
even during the career path,
is you grieve a lot at work. Not all grief is death.
loss can take different shapes, but what I'm hearing, Mindy, and I really appreciate that and admire it, is that what you are telling us is that leadership, it's not built only in boardrooms, but it's built in our personal journeys, and how, regardless how hard they can be. And I feel that this is the part that why we see now more people are really engaging with faith and with that, because this is the part that we have tried for decades to cut off, and now people, they need that. So
But
We need to talk about it. We need to be able to talk about it. We need to have that as part of our vernacular. You know, telling people to not talk about things caused us to be a divided country. And we learned not to talk about things. We've learned not to talk about things. And then when people talk about things and they have discord, nobody's learned how to have respectful discord.
you just said something really powerful, because when we learn not to talk about things, that's not just in the boardroom. That is in families. That is in living rooms. That is, our humanity. And the more that we lean onto technology, which we absolutely love, and in fact, Youssef is coming to on our multimedia AI and everything technology segment, sister brand, to speak about the role of all of that in the workforce and professional. But the reality is that now, especially now that there's a blurring between professional and personal lives, right? Character matters. And I remember one of our colleagues and a PWT alumni, that she says, mistake do not mistake character for charisma for character. Do not mistake charisma for character. So when we speak about faith, because although I am a prodigal daughter, I'm coming back to my dogma. I've spent years studying, Eastern traditions, and my personal philosophy has been more anchored on Eastern traditions than really Catholicism. And although, I'm now beginning to do a lot more discovery of, of what does it mean to be a practicing Catholic, or a practicing Christian, or I wouldn't even go Christian. I would go Catholic, because if I'm going to own it, I'm going to own it, right?
Catholic is Christian.
Pardon?
Catholic is Christian.
I understand that, darling. Yes, I understand. But
I know you understand that, but I just want to make sure everybody else understands that being a Catholic is also being a Christian.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
That's a very US conversation.
For me, it's because it's almost like there's two parts of it. Like my youth was spent in, all girls Catholic schools and with Jesuits, and it formed who I am. And having traveled so much and in changing languages, Catholicism was home no matter where I went. And no matter, I could always go to a church and I knew I was home, right? In that Catholic church. But my adult life has spent in an, interdisciplinary spiritual journey. So it's a fusion. And as I said, in Toronto, um, there's just so many people from everywhere that is a delight to learn, right? And to meet the person. Like when Youssef and I first met, I was thrilled. It was like, yes, like I get to, work and bring that messaging. We have, colleagues that are Jewish. We have colleagues that are Coptic. We have like the more the merrier, right? Because we show that behind all the labels, there's a human. And behind everything that you think you know about what that faith or that label or that identity or that category means, there's still a person that has more in common with you that you may realize. So this is the beginning of, we're so totally coming back to you on it, because we also need to speak about the proper way to bring about faith and spirituality in a diverse setting, such as a boardroom or an office or a team. So because respect comes in, right? So how are we true to ourselves while respecting everyone else? So that's
a good conversation.
That's the reflection that we're leaving you with. And I look forward to, of course, Mindy and Youssef and myself. I always forget to, include myself in the pot. We're in all of our magazines. We are in 5 different ecosystems that we support. And we have amazing books coming out this year and events, and you'll be seeing lots of us. So let us
don't forget about my book. That is exactly about bringing Jesus into your leadership, which is called How Do I Speak God's Word?
And you know what? I had a huge transformational shift while publishing, this book. And I am going to, we're in the process of publishing Youssef's solo book project, but we also have our anthologies, we also have our magazines, and we look forward to seeing you all again. So thank you, Youssef. Thank you, Mindy. And let's continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.